What I'd like to discuss today is the dangers inherent with firing a warning shot. Warning shots, a lot of times in the movies, have to do with stop right now or I'll shoot, and then followed by a warning shot. Now then, I want to tell you that in Oklahoma, warning shots are not per se prohibited, nor are they authorized. However, they are classified as the discharge of a deadly weapon. I'm talking about shooting using your pistol or firearm, your handgun. So, what happens when you use your firearm to give a warning shot? Many people think it's an appropriate response to a threat that they perceive from someone who may be armed or unarmed, or there may be a disproportionate use of force being tendered by opposing people, and thus they are like a somewhat like a bird or like an animal, such as a skunk, raising its tail and warning, saying, "Stand back or I'll shoot." Well, the law, as is always the case in Oklahoma, says that the only force you can use is reasonable force unless you are faced by deadly force. So if you are not encountering an imminent threat of death or an imminent threat of grave bodily injury, the law says you cannot use deadly force until you are faced with that situation. So what do we have here? Let me give you some examples. A person could be walking down the street and confronted by someone who makes vague threats at them or exhibits threatening behavior, or perhaps in a better scenario, a trespasser on one's land. The law in Oklahoma is very clear. You cannot use deadly force to repel a trespasser. It must be reasonable force, limited to that force necessary to remove the trespasser. When you start talking about reasonableness of the amount of force, you're talking about a jury and encountering a jury and a jury judging you as to whether they vote and decide that your actions were reasonable under the circumstances. So if you punch a trespasser, it could be an unreasonable use of force. If you hit the trespasser with a stick or with some sort of instrument short of deadly force, even your cell phone, throwing a rock at him, it could be an unreasonable use of force under the circumstances. So any property owner must be careful about the amount of force. Now then, personal confrontations involving trespassers many times spiral into use of deadly force situation if the trespasser is armed or becomes aggressive and attacks with the intention to cause grave bodily injury. So I'm here to tell you that if you take out your gun or display your gun, you could be moving into the area of use of deadly force, in which a trespasser could say you put your hand on your gun and threaten him with it, or you pulled your gun when in fact you never touched your gun or pulled it out or pointed it. If you point your gun at a trespasser, that is the use of deadly force, and it could be either interpreted by the police to be a misdemeanor, pointing a firearm, where you're allowed to use a defense of that you were encountering a trespasser and you needed to use reasonable force. But if the trespasser should tell the police, "He caused me to be frightened by the use of his gun, he pointed it at me," chances are very good that the police and the prosecutor will file felony charges of pointing a weapon. And that's short of firing a warning shot. A warning shot has its other dangers, such as you don't point the gun at the intended target, but you point it at the ground in order to be safe, but you discharge it and fire a warning shot. The warning shot could throw some dirt onto the trespasser, and the trespasser could say that particles hit him and hurt him, and then it would be a question of proof as to whether you tried to shoot the trespasser but missed due to mishandling of your gun, very much like the famous police officer of Mayberry, you know, who was only given one bullet because he could only handle barely one bullet. Now then, what we have here is the U.S. Law Shield member trying to defend his property and trying to shoot into the ground, and instead circumstances spiraling out of his control and involving a use of deadly force, could be shooting with intent to kill, pointing of a firearm, many other charges, all of which are very grave felonies and certainly not intended consequences from firing a warning shot. A warning shot fired could most probably be discharging a firearm in public, which is a misdemeanor. It could be shooting with intent to kill, which is a felony. It could be a just reckless handling of a firearm, which is a misdemeanor. All sorts of very noxious and bad things related to firing a warning shot. And the best recommendation is that you use your firearm in self-defense when you're encountering deadly force and need to rely on your firearm to repel deadly force. Thank you very much for allowing me this time to talk to you today.